Thought I was prepared. All right, this is Cortez City Council regular meeting. Today is Tuesday, July 12th, 2022, and the time is 7:30 p.m. I'd like to call this meeting to order and ask you to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll move on to roll call. Linda?
Kiefhofer.
Here.
DeHaven.
Here.
Spruill.
Here.
Rainey.
Here.
Yazzie.
Here.
Dobry.
Here.
Medina.
Here. All right, noting that we have a quorum tonight. And then we'll move on to approval of the agenda. And now is the time to have a citizen or council member, if they wish to have any specific items, any changes to the agenda.
I'd like to add one item to the agenda, the approval of the Historic Property Survey Contractor. And I don't know where we should add it.
Yeah, where is that gonna go?
Seven B, new business 7B.
Yeah, new business, yeah.
Okay, I'd like to add that as new business 7B.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, yeah, motion made by Councilmember Dobry and seconded by Kiefhofer.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Kiefhofer.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Spruill.
Aye.
DeHaven.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right, we'll move on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is a listing, a group of items to be acted on with a single motion and vote. This agenda is designed to expedite the handling of limited routine matters by City Council. Either the public or a council member may request that an item may be removed from the consent agenda at this time prior to council's vote. A, approval of the work session and regular meeting minutes of June 28th, 2022. B, approval of the expenditure list for July 12th, 2022, City Council meeting. C, approval of the renewal application for a retail marijuana center license for Green Kiwi 4 LLC, doing business as Live Well, located at 1819 East Main Street, Cortez. D, approval of a renewal application for a medical marijuana center on-site optional premises cultivation license for Durango Organics, LLP, DBA Dio Cortez, located at 1013 East Main Street, Cortez. E, approval of a renewal hotel and restaurant liquor license with outdoor dining agreement for Blondie's Trophy Room, LLC, DBA Blondie's Trophy Room, located at 45 East Main Street, Cortez. F, approval of a change in premises application for Reseda Inc., DBA Tequila's Mexican Restaurant, located at 1740 East Main Street, Suite 1, Cortez. G, approval of a renewal fermented malt beverage liquor license for Western Refining Retail LLC, DBA Speedway number 9499, located at 921 East Main Street, Cortez. H, approval of a renewal hotel and restaurant liquor license for Once Upon LLC, DBA Once Upon a Sandwich, located at 7 West Main Street, Cortez. I, approval of a renewal retail liquor store license for 718 Cortez Inc., DBA Liquid Assets, located at 718 East Main Street, Cortez. And J, approval of a renewal retail liquor store liquor license for Turbos Ltd., DBA Cork and Bottle, located at 443 East Main Street, Cortez.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Dobry and seconded by Kiefhofer.
Rainey.
Aye.
DeHaven.
Aye.
Spruill.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Kiefhofer.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right, so we'll move on to item number 3 on the agenda, public participation. I want to remind the public, if you want to comment, we do have comment cards now. There's no limit to the number of speakers, although public comment will be held at an overall time limit of 30 minutes. Speakers have a time limit of 3 minutes per person, may only speak once, and may not cede time of another commenter. And then we do have visual cues for when you're down to your last 30 seconds, or when you're down to your last minute, and then 30 seconds, and then your time is up. Okay. Thank you. Oh, yeah, noting the time is 7:35, and a half hour or 30 minutes from now is 8:05. Okay, I'd like to invite Lisa Pacell to speak. Make sure your mic is on and green, and then start with your name and address.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Lisa Passo, 515 Texas Street, and also a Cortez business owner. In reviewing the June 28th and July 14th council agenda packets, I noticed a bid for AV equipment in the council chambers at a cost of $216,899, plus approximately $10K per year for maintenance. I was one of the Cortez residents that questioned the closing of the refuse department in February. It was mentioned that the department needed a new truck, but the city couldn't afford the $250,000 to $400,000 price tag. Yet a mere 4 months later, we can afford a $220,000K AV project. I question the priorities here. A new trash truck would have benefited most, if not all, of the 8,000 plus residents in Cortez. New AV equipment will benefit maybe 100, less than 5%. But even above the number of citizens who will benefit is the underlying question: are we watching expenses or not? According to Appendix B under Ms. Koski's packet documents, the city had $135,000 to contribute to the community intervention program, $80,000 to hire a new city attorney admin assistant, and $105,299 to purchase a small vacant lot off Empire. Now we have $220K for AV equipment. In total, that's $536,000 for a few projects. May I also ask why council was not presented with bids received on the AV equipment? It was published for bid on March 14th and closed on April 6th. According to BidNet, at least 25 vendors downloaded the documents. In reviewing council minutes, Mr. Allred chose one vendor to present to council in a workshop. What were the other bids received? AVI is a global company out of Tampa, Florida. Were they the lowest bidder? Included in the estimate dated May 20th is the cost of $5,480 for travel and per diem, and there's a general administrative charge for vehicle mileage of $6,883.88. Publicly, I'd like to thank Councilman Kiefhofer and Councilman Spruill for raising questions and opposing the purchase. We've also been told the city does not have funds to continue work on the South Side Park at the site of the old MCHS. The property was purchased and now sits vacant, an eyesore of dead grass, dead trees, and graffiti, even while various youth sports programs jockey for fields to play ball on. Those youth are being told we have no funds, and yet we can afford AV equipment. As a Cortez citizen, I continue to have questions regarding the projects presented for approval. I would like to publicly state my disapproval with the spending of $216,899 on AV equipment when the city can't afford trash trucks, additional lifeguards, parks, etc. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. All right, I'd like to invite Susan Chemnitz. All right, make sure the mic is on and start with your name and address. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Susan Chemnitz, and I live at 511 South Cedar Street. A few weeks ago, I heard quite a few people speaking at the city council meeting about how the librarians were harassed and or intimidated regarding a proposed drag queen show. I'd like to present the definition of the words intimidate and harass. To intimidate is to fill with fear, to force into or defer from an action by inducing fear, and harass is to annoy with repeated attacks, to disturb or bother continually with worries, cares, or the like, to harry or pester. It is against the law to intimidate or harass a public servant. Since I've heard of no charges filed or arrests made in connection with this incident, I could justifiably assume the people got their panties in a bunch over other people voicing their opinion. A drag queen show is a sex show, and as a public institution, a library has no business sponsoring it. That said, if people want a show like this, there are plenty of venues for it, such as bars. That's where I saw my first one. This is America, and adults are free to do as they wish within the law. But children do not need to be exposed to this. Childhood is only a small portion of life. Children need to be free to be children without having ideas about sex forced at them at a young age. There's plenty of time for them to consider it as adults. I worked at the library for years before COVID and saw the professionalism with which the librarians handled all kinds of disruptive and disturbing behavior. I believe the librarians canceled the show because it was the right and legal thing to do. I would urge everyone to visit the library, as it's a great source of information, and perhaps some people could check into a book called a dictionary before they throw words around that could be considered slanderous. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Susan. Seeing no other public comment cards, we'll end that session and we'll move on to 4 on the agenda, presentations. 4A is broadband information on providing service to residents in Southwest Colorado. Presenter is Shaq Powers with Region 9.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, Council, for allowing me to present tonight. Give me 1 second while I plug stuff in, please. Thank you for having me, Council. Most of you know me from my former position as the administrator for Montezuma County. I'm here in my new role this evening to represent Region 9 Economic Development District and the work that we are doing with broadband. What you see in front of you is the regional broadband plan and a drawing thereof anyways, and the green line is the loop around the state that the state is trying to connect, and Corey Brindle from DOLA and Region 10 is the primary on that. There's currently 2 programs available that Region 9 is going to be seeking on behalf of the 5-county area. The first is enabling middle mile broadband infrastructure, and that's for the construction and improvement of middle mile infrastructure. The state is set to receive between $5 and $100 million for those projects. The second one that's going to be available very shortly is the Capital Projects Fund. The state is set to receive approximately $162 million for that. The state's priorities are to build or improve Colorado's middle mile broadband infrastructure, which is the backbone of the state's high-speed network, and also to address unserved and underserved members of Colorado, being 25 megs down and 3 up would be unserved, and 25 down, 3 up, and 20 up would be underserved. And they want to support projects with this money that are community driven with partnerships between municipalities, providers, and other stakeholders. Applicants can be nonprofits such as Region 9, cities, counties, tribes, COGS, governments. Any private company applying for the money needs to show government partnership. But the first thing that comes to mind is, why does it matter? First, broadband access is listed as a high priority for all Region 9 communities in the Community Economic Development Strategy, or the CEDS program. For Montezuma, it comes in Keep in mind, for those of you not familiar with the SEDS, these are not a ranking of priority. It just shows where they are on the SEDS. But for Montezuma, it's number 24, Archuleta 12, Dolores County 29, La Plata County shows up at 326 and 28, and San Juan County as number 32. In our Montezuma County SEDS, you can see the ranking as the third column. All the communities in Montezuma County ranked broadband as a high priority. Also, government has a responsibility to provide for commerce. In Article 1, Section 8 of the U.S. Constitution, you find the Interstate Commerce Act, clause, which the Constitution doesn't give government a whole lot of responsibilities. It does give government the responsibility of making sure the citizens have access to commerce. There is approximately 2.14 billion online shoppers worldwide. Region-wide for Region 9, retail trade is the highest employment sector by category. In Montezuma County, it's the second highest employment sector by category. And government has a responsibility to be sure that those providing the jobs have access to do the job well. So what Region 9 is trying to do is build collaboration among the counties, municipalities, and tribes. For Montezuma County, priority 1 is to connect Cortez to Mancos and then up to the county line on 160. You'll remember a couple of years ago, or some of you on council will remember a couple of years ago when there was a fiber line that was cut by construction and all communication was lost over at the county. We lost internet, the city lost internet, dispatch lost all of its service. So this is a priority route to make sure that we have redundancy in and out of the area, so that if somebody cuts fiber on one side, it doesn't take out the hospital, the 911 system, and other emergency services again. Priority 2 on the map is the tri-state line, and getting from Mancos to Dolores would be priority 3 on the map. So scenario A for how we can do this, we've been in discussions with Empire Electric Association, and they would like to see all of their substations connected in Montezuma County. That would, if it was built in Empire's power space, they would need to be the owner, but they've also discussed allowing building in the communication space. If it was for them to own, they would sign an IRU so that different internet service providers would be able to access it along the way without getting into the power space. They would just drop loops of the fiber however often was necessary. They are also open to the idea of ISPs building in the communication space, so long as they go through the process of putting in all the proper pole attachment agreements and engineering. So in this scenario, it would be a build out from the substations at Cortez to East Cortez to Mancos to Dolores and Lost Canyon to Narragansett, Areola, and then back to Cortez, and create redundancy within the county. Based on the priority map, if we could only start with a few substations, then the priorities would be to connect East Cortez to Mancos and then Mancos to Dolores. And this is a visual representation of what that would look like. The substations are marked on this map with little green crosses. I do want to make everyone aware those are not dispensaries, those are substations. That just happens to be a symbol that looks like that. A second scenario in which we could accomplish priority 1 would be to bury the fiber in the Pass to Mesa Verde project. And that would be a combination of buried and aerial. And using Pass to Mesa Verde from the 2210 carrier neutral facility to, or carrier neutral location over to Mancos and then up to the towers up on 160. By the way, I learned an interesting fact while I was at the infrastructure summit yesterday. I didn't know the whole idea for carrier-neutral locations came from the city's very own Rick Smith with the data center that he had built for the city, and then other broadband providers took that and ran with the idea. So props to your staff for coming up with that, because it's being modeled nationwide now. One thing to note about Empire being a preferable method is that if we have to go with the paths to Mesa Verde, trenching and buying conduit is a lot more expensive than attaching to existing poles. So the desired outcomes, if we're able to do this, is to provide safety and redundancy routes for the state's fiber network, to provide safety and redundancy routes within Region 9, and then to provide rural community members access to commerce, education, healthcare, and mental health services that are sometimes unavailable locally. Some examples of that would be Southwest Health System continues to see patients through telehealth options. They're doing this more and more for follow-up from surgeries and things that don't require an in-person visit. But as you know, residents can't do that if they don't have a computer and access to high-speed internet. Also, Access Health System in 2020 began stepping up their telehealth options so that patients could make appointments and be seen by video chat. They don't have to go to the office. We all know, and we've heard discussed in several meetings, about the mental behavioral health problems here. And some people still deal with the stigma. They don't want to be seen going to seek mental health for themselves or for their families. And one way for them to do that is through a telehealth appointment, but again, they can't do it if they don't have access to internet and the tools to access the internet. And of course, Pueblo Community College, our local campus, has designed online curriculum with their instructors. Students taking online, though, have to have access to computer and internet. And then they're also using Colorado Community College online over at Pueblo Community College. But again, you got to have internet access to participate in that. So our continued desired outcomes would be to increase operability for Empire Electric, provide higher connectivity speeds to underserved homes, and to provide service to homes and businesses that currently don't have internet access, which is about 16%, and then to provide infrastructure for the second largest county employment sector to expand their businesses to bring more outside dollars into the area. Region 9 is currently working with local staff, the counties and the municipalities, and Empire Electric and different internet service providers to gather the data that would show the number of households currently being served and the number of businesses currently being served and what those numbers would look like if this project was completed, and also to identify how much capital the ISPs are willing to put in, internet service providers are willing to put in, and identify any subsidies that may be needed. And then we'll be putting together shape files to present a visual representation of the project. So we're working to show community engagement. Part of this is coming out and participating tonight. There's not going to be anything happening right away other than I will be submitting a letter of intent to file with the state. By July 18th, I'll be submitting that letter, and I'd like to have a letter of support from the city saying that you're generally in favor of the idea. The grant cycles will not begin opening until January of 23, so we definitely have time to put together details, but I want to begin communicating early and often about the project and keep you updated as we go along. The city of Cortez is in good standing as most of its fiber network has already been built out, and so I don't estimate that there would be a large cost, if any, associated for the city of Cortez, but I want to keep you linked in on information, and this is valuable to the city to have a redundant route provided out of here so that when fibers are cut, as they inevitably will be, that there'll be that link so that things don't go down in the future. So again, I'm asking City Council for a letter of support, and then I would also ask for a commitment to be able to participate maybe on a quarterly basis, just to keep you updated and to update the public in your chambers. And at this time, I would entertain any questions from council.
Shaq, I think you alluded to it just a minute ago, but would the fiber connect within the municipalities or connect around, or is the idea to have a backbone of fiber through like the center of Mancus, where some company would come in the future and build out from there, or what? I guess I missed that part.
Thank you, Councilman. The idea would be the state's, these two packages of funds that are coming down would be to build out that middle mile backbone. But we do need to show that we have last mile in mind. And so we would work with the ISPs to build out that last mile, because they can't afford to build middle mile, and it doesn't make sense to build the last mile without it. So it would have to be a partnership to get that done. And yes, there would be connections in the municipalities. Specifically in Cortez, I believe they would connect over behind Walmart.
So there's a huge difference between 5 and 100 million.
Yeah, I realize that. Those are the numbers that the state is saying that they could be eligible to receive, which is why they're asking for the letter of intent, so that they can be putting together their estimations for how much that they're going to be asking for from the infrastructure and jobs.
And so then when do you need a letter of support?
I would need it to submit with my letter of intent by July 18th. If council is unable to provide one by July 18th, I'm happy to let the Colorado Broadband Office know that a letter could be forthcoming.
Yeah, is that something?
Well, we're happy to provide a letter of support, but our next meeting's not until July, 23rd, I think. So to have it ratified by council, we'd have to do that, but we could handle administratively as well. And that would actually be my suggestion.
Okay. I mean, if council feels comfortable, we could do administrative. Okay, and then my other question is, on the reported speeds, can you go back to that slide?
Sure.
I mean, have we been evaluated as underserved? Because I am concerned that it looks that we, it's companies reporting how much they provide. Like, okay, we provide up to 25 megs, or we provide up to 30 megs. But in reality, people are only getting 5 or 1. So then like areas look served, but they're really not.
And the state has recognized that that has been a problem, reporting from providers often not matching what is happening on the ground. And so the state is working on their own broadband mapping. It can be found on the CBO website. I think it's broadband.colorado.gov. And most rural areas within the state have been qualified as underserved.
Okay. Yeah, as long as we're not disqualified by bad data.
No, there is no suggestion that we will be, especially when we apply as a region and we get to include areas such as, Silverton and Rico. And anybody try to make a phone call driving between Dolores and Rico lately?
All right. Any more questions? Well, thank you so much, Shaq, for coming and taking the time.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council.
Okay, we'll move on to presentations number 4B on the agenda. This is a potential a budget 2022 budget adjustment.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Very good job discerning what that was about. I believe that was a little confusing when you took a look at the agenda packet. What were we talking about here this evening? So good job, Mayor. So we are talking about mid-year budget adjustments. You'll notice in the packet you have Appendix B, which lists the line items that are up for consideration for the mid-year budget adjustment. I think it's important to note that all of the items that are up for consideration are included in the general fund budget. For our newer council members, our general fund budget is separate from our enterprises. Our general fund budget is typically funded through sales tax. Our enterprises are funded through their own revenue streams. An example of the revenue streams and the enterprises that the city has, one of them is the airport, one of them is the refuse fund, and one of them is the rec center. They have their own designated funding sources that do not mix with the general fund. So none of those are included in the mid-year budget adjustments.
And then could you explain what the ARPA funds are one more for us again?
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the ARPA funding is we received the first half of the ARPA funds last year in June, $1,092,000. We just received the second half of that. Those are the federal dollars that came directly from the feds for COVID relief. We actually have not spent any of our ARPA funds yet. We have until 2024 to obligate those funds, and we have until 2026 to expend them. So we're wanted to take time to put together the projects that we wanted to designate specifically for the ARPA funding. We wanted an opportunity to have our new grant administrator, Scott Baker, on board. You'll be able to meet him later this evening, just to help us manage those funds so that we were really being deliberate about how that funding was spent, because it is not going to be a continual funding stream. It is, as the feds like to say, a once-in-a-lifetime funding opportunity.
Thank you, Kelly.
Sure. So the items that are up for discussion, just for your information, this is just so that I am able to put together the ordinance for the mid-year budget adjustment. So any discussions that we have will then lead into an ordinance for the mid-year budget adjustment at the next meeting, and then it will also require public comment and a second reading before it's actually finalized. So just kind of lay out the process. So the first three items that are on the list, the Montezuma County Community Intervention Program, that was an item that came in after we had approved our budget. I think we were able to get our budget approved pretty quickly last year, and that took some people by surprise. They were like, oh my gosh, we were gonna ask for this and you guys are already done. So it was an ask that happened after the budget was approved. It was, however, later approved by council, and that those funds have already been expended. The second item, the new position of the city attorney and the new admin assistant, both at half your salary and benefits. We do have some funds left over that we would have paid to the previous city attorney to use in the budget. So this is just a half year minus what we had left over for what we already had a budget for the city attorney. The third item was the purchase of 1002 East Empire, which is the lot, the vacant lot that's just north of Parque de Vida. That was also one of those items that we couldn't have possibly foreseen that was going to be able to come available, and we'd have the opportunity to purchase that. That's also been approved by council. The other two items are the AV equipment for the city council chambers, and then also the county is requesting funding of $150,000 to help redo the road out at the airport. That is an item that we could use ARPA funding for. It does fit in with the requirements for the ARPA funding, as it is a project that was already included in the 10-year plan that Mr. Patton's put together. We're working on an updated 10-year plan, and it's also included in that. So you'll notice also in your packet, there was a document that showed the comparison of the 21 budget with the net income or loss, and also the 22 budget that shows the surplus that we had at the end of the 22 budget process. So I'm sure we have lots of questions. I'd be happy to entertain them.
Sorry. I can't make this button work tonight. That's my first question. How do I get it to work?
Yeah, they're sticky, aren't they?
Yeah, it is sticky tonight. Are you going to be doing a presentation here on the AV? Is that what this is, or is that?
Yes. So our city manager, Drew Sanders, has a presentation about the AV additional questions that were asked. And then I also have some additional information that just came in today about leasing options. That was the question that we had about that. So I'll pass it off to Drew and let him begin.
Yeah, good evening, council. Just wanted to, remember tonight's process, we're not making any decisions other than we're just asking for guidance on what should be on the final ordinance for that. So this is one of the items. I just wanted to touch base on the $150,000 for the ARPA thing for County Road F out of the airport. The actual ask for that was $125,000. I'm coming to council and saying let's appropriate $150,000 only because we know cost overruns occur, and what I'd rather not do is come and ask for $10,000 later. Let's just do it up to $150,000 at this moment. But let's get back to the AV discussion. So we prepared some information for council on this. Now, some arguments in favor of putting this on the budget adjustment. Well, we have a new system that will operate as expected. The one we have right now is a bit on its last legs. It will come with integrated software and equipment, unlike what we have now. It is a functioning system, but that will help us maintain transparency and access to the public out there remotely, especially. It does contain better ADA functionality and translation capability. One of the points that I think we need to point out is that we can order now, but we really do not pay for that under our accounting system until it arrives, and that's likely not going to be till 2023. So essentially what we're doing now, were we to put this on the budget adjustment or mid-year adjustment, it's really just a placeholder, and it's just really a way of just being upfront and having this out there and appropriated should we need it. The reality is we're probably going to have to, in fact we will have to, send the same thing through the 2023 budget process. So what we do now, we're going to have to go through again just to make sure we're double covered. And I'll use the example of what we did a couple years ago, and actually last year with the water tanks, because we didn't know when we had to double budget for that because we didn't know in what fiscal year that was going to land. Also, there are lease options available for this, although that actually costs more over time, and I'm not really sure that's a good one to go with. This is a major upgrade of our capabilities and reliability. However, if we do not order it now, our prices are guaranteed to go up as time progresses. So we do need the equipment, we do need to make some changes, and it's just up to us to decide whether or not now is the time to do that. However, arguments against, well, this is a big one in my mind, and I think in others. This is a large expenditure, and it is outside the normal budgeting process, and I really hate the visual on that. But right now, our system is on its last legs, and it has not been working. So we've got to, at least be open and upfront about it. Whether this comes to pass or not, at least we're talking about it, trying to solve problems now. So here's some other considerations. It is a little bit time sensitive. Our current system, we know that failure is imminent. In fact, our IT people are keeping the one we have up It's on its last legs. We see it regularly. However, if we order it now, there is a high likelihood that it will not be received until fiscal year 2023, at which time it doesn't really matter. All this reverts back to the general fund anyway. However, if authorized, there is a need to order components and lock that pricing in. And I will just be upfront with council. There are some price reductions we can do with that, should we choose, and as we dig into that further and get closer to actually receiving this and so on, there are a few little things we can do. Some of that is not switching out these televisions, and you know, we can maintain these, that's fine. However, we can repurpose these in other buildings in the city that we do have a need. And so whether we purchase as part of this package, you know, these for new ones for in here or new ones elsewhere, you know, we're paying one way or another. So that's all I have on that, council. Any questions?
So if we basically allocated the money now and ordered this system and it came in next year, how does that work? Does that money roll over then into the next year, or and then we
No,
plan
it does
for it in the
not.
January budget? What does that look like? I guess I don't
Yeah,
know.
what happens is that it would just only be appropriated for fiscal year 2022. At the end of the fiscal year, if that's not expended, it reverts right back to the general fund. It's not appropriated for anything. So what we're going to have to do is ask for the appropriation now, but in this fall, when we start on the new budget process, we're going to have to, you know, possibly rebudget for it then.
So the point of like approving it now would lock in the price with the company, essentially.
Correct. That's all we're doing, and the reality is it's going to be 6 weeks before we can really legitimately, you know, have this authorized. So if you were to tell us to add this with the mid-year adjustment right now, 2 weeks from now, we would introduce for the first reading, that ordinance. 2 weeks beyond that, presumably that ordinance would pass. At that time, the money is then authorized. So we're not even going to be able to order it essentially for about 6 weeks. And we're still risking a price increase, but all that's doing is it more or less guarantees it's going to be after the first of the year. But that would not be the proper way to handle public funds, where we basically, you know, ordered something that we don't have authorization to do, and we're not going to do that to the council or the community.
So what, in the memo for B, it says there's a sizable surplus of $2,628,631. What happens to that?
So if that is not expended by the end of the fiscal year, it simply rolls back into the general fund. Yeah, this is all just dealing with general fund money.
Is that considered the reserves, or is that different?
Well, we don't have it designated as reserves. It's just money that was not expended that goes back into the general fund bank account, basically.
So-
This is a question I should have probably asked Shay, is we had several proposals. Why this vendor? Were they the lowest? Were they the best? Why did we choose this vendor?
Yeah, we have those answers and we have those numbers. We'll ask Shay to help us with that.
Honorable Mayor, Council, good. How are you guys doing this evening? We actually put in the RFP that the only way you could actually answer the RFP in question was you had to come and do an on-site walkthrough of the facility to get plans to see exactly what needed to be done, and only 2 vendors showed up for that walkthrough. Those 2 vendors were Ford AV and AVI SPL. Those 2 submitted their bids. AVI SPL won the bid process. Yes, sir.
And Shay, or Drew, I'm not sure who would know, but how much was the original AV system?
The one that's in here at present, I don't know the exact number, but you figure moving it from the old city hall to this building, and then the additions to make it fit in this building, it was anywhere from probably $35,000 to $75,000 in upgrades and fits. not including the extras. That's just for the equipment. And keep in mind, that's, you know, that's growing from one piece of equipment to 2 to 3. Oh, we need one more. So, and that's ballpark. That's not even I'd have to go back and look at the POs and see what we paid.
I think while I certainly would love to have any surplus, let alone $2,600,000 surplus in my own pocket, I still have, that'd be great, I still have a lot of the same concerns, and one of those really is about the budget process that we go through every year. And I don't want to set a precedent where something like this comes up and we say, well, yeah, we're doing pretty good right now, so I think we should go ahead and, you know, I mean, it could, who knows what could happen, you know, at any point there could be some sort of an emergency that we absolutely need funding to address that emergency. So that's my first concern. My second concern is just, you know, it's a lot of money. It's, you know, I mean, when everything's said and done, it's like $250,000. It's a lot. I mean, still those are my big concerns about this and about the process, and I do understand, and I thank you for going through the process of doing an RFP and doing the tours and all those sorts of things, but I don't know, if it, in my estimation, when I look at some of the other things, CIP program absolutely makes sense. I'm behind it 100%, and anybody can go back and look at those council meetings for my reasons why those. I think the work on Road F is legitimate too. I think that's a public safety issue. I think there are lots of things, but again, you know, when you think about sort of the impact of that this will have, we do have to think about the total number of people that it's going to impact versus, you know, citywide versus, you know, us and maybe a few people that tend to watch online. So those are some of my concerns with it. They're pretty much the same as they were before, even though, you know, this is a huge amount. And you know, I'm not trying to be a hard ass about this. I'm just trying to bring out the points that, you know, for me, it doesn't feel like something that we typically would do.
Correct. And I certainly understand those concerns. I just want to clarify for my purposes exactly what I need to include in the ordinance that we're bringing forward. The items that have already been paid for, obviously, and the other 2 items at the end of the list are the 2 that I just need clarification on so that I know what to include in the ordinance moving forward. Yeah, certainly good, certainly understandable concerns.
And Shay, I guess from my perspective, from your last presentation and today, I just want to make sure I'm interpreting this correct. From the IT perspective, is our system, it's going, it's more of like almost an emergency situation where it's going to fail indefinitely?
Yes, ma'am. And eventually it's gonna, you just don't know when. And the system that we have is, I think, 14 years old. And recommended industry standards like we do with our servers for the rest of the city is every 7 years we try to keep everything in a life cycle where every 7 years we sell it back to the vendor, re-up with new hardware. That way everything's covered under warranty, and if there's any hardware failures, all that stuff is covered in the upfront cost, and that's what we're trying to get everything back onto. That we've things have slipped through the cracks over the years. So we're just trying to re-up that and fix that.
I just have one more comment that's not directly related to the AV system, and that is I was really excited several months ago when we had talked about the potential of paying off some of our outstanding debt early. And in my book, like, that's how I personally do things. You know, I don't like to have a big credit card balance or something that's hanging out there. It just feels better to get that taken care of. So is there anything that's in the plan to pay off some of that long-term debt that maybe then we can legitimately start to, you know, save some money and put it towards things that are nice to have and not just, you know, immediate needs.
Yes, so that will definitely be a part of our budget process and discussions for 2023. I want to make sure that we do have those funds correctly appropriated for any early payments. One of the challenges that we're going to run into with that early debt payment is, for example, with the hydro plant, it is an enterprise fund with its own designated revenue stream. And at this point, the revenue stream that it has doesn't even currently meet its debt. So how do we solve that problem? We have contacted that lender. We have asked if they would be willing to, you know, redo the loan on different terms or maybe extend the terms in order to reduce the payment, and that was a hard no. So we will have some challenges like that going forward with that debt repayment. How do we do that? So.
Could I weigh in? I think essentially, if we don't do something about this in a relatively short period of time, it's like kicking the can down the road and more like running out of gas in the middle of the desert. If we wait till our system goes away, then it's going to be far more expensive than taking the initial step of moving it soon.
So I think just so the audience understands that what Drew said that's really important is that we're not voting on anything tonight. These are all proposals, so we can say, yes, go ahead and bring it forward, and then we will vote on it in the future.
Exactly. This is just a discussion. And, you know, whether council wants this or anything else on there, that's up to council. We just, you know, we work for you. So we just need guidance on what to put on there.
I think there's enough of a split that this item should be on there if we are able to piece it out so that we can vote on those items separately, unless you cannot.
Yeah, we won't be able to. Either you put it in and it's voted on as part of the package, or we don't.
Okay.
So that's it. It would be improper to do its own ordinance just for that piece.
Okay.
I guess for me, I think accessibility is really important, and so I would like to see this on there. If it means that we can, you know, have hybrid meetings, it means that we're more ADA accessible or ADA compliant, and if there's better records of our meetings, it's easier to participate and go back to our meetings, and also just easier for the council to navigate. But I see the concern with the cost. Yeah.
Well, I agree. It's not a good visual, but we need to weigh the urgency, and that's why we've approached council.
Well, and tech stuff is just extremely expensive in general. We saw that with COVID when everyone had to get laptops to work from home.
So, council, just to be clear, we should add this on or we should not?
Probably go ahead and add it on, even though I'm the biggest dissenter overall. I think that it will warrant more discussion and probably more importantly, public input. And then, you know, we can vote on it.
When do we need the answer to get the savings?
To get the savings?
Yeah, if we wait until January, they say we're not going to get the amount of, it may go up by then. So when do they need an answer?
Well, ideally, we would order it now, and, well, sooner the better. I don't know how, if even 6 weeks is, our bid's gonna last. Shay, do we have an answer to that?
The bid the bid that they put up for us, they're gonna guarantee because it all went through the RFP process. But just to clarify more to your point, if that same bid came out today as it did for the bid we put in, it would be $7,000 more. So that's the amount that it would increase. And I don't want to get into that, but there is an urgency, but I understand that it needs to be discussed more than, I get it.
Can I, and I don't want to move on from this topic if people have more to say, but I do want to ask about the Road F.
Okay.
I was just going to say that I don't know if we can include it. I don't know if we can include it. It seems like council, I don't know if the mid-year adjustment would pass with it, which is a concern, and we know that we need to pass the mid-year adjustment for the other things. I think that's a little bit what Councilperson Yazzie was getting to, is there the possibility of two ordinances, one with, one without, and then we can say yes, no, or do you want us as council to kind of dig into it now? And
I think what we need to do is look at trying to separate it out. We do need the mid-year adjustment for the other items. Mm-hmm. Those are important, and some of it's already been expended. We got to get that authorized. And yes, I am, as I'm counting, wondering if this would pass or not. And it would not be a good thing at this late in the year for it not to. So I'm thinking what we need to do is let's hold off. Let's leave it off for the mid-year adjustment. We will talk as staff on how best to perhaps reintroduce this or not, and give you an opportunity to pair that off and allow for different discussions. So I think that's the road we should go forward, if that's okay with council. Yeah. Okay, I'm getting some nods, so that's what we'll do. So thank you.
Okay, so just for my clarification, I want to make sure that I do this correctly. We are going to include in the ordinance first readings items A, B, C, and D. We're eliminating item E, correct?
No, A, B, C, and E, we're eliminating D.
Thank you very much for the clarification. I appreciate that.
Okay. I just have a question. Jeremy, do you know more about the road project? Because I want to make sure that it seemed like there were different ideas on that road improvement, and I fully support putting money towards that. I think it's a good partnership with the county. I think it's an important asset, economic development. It's how our community looks. But they were mentioning like reconfiguring the intersection, and I hope that and I like that we beefed it up a little because the cost. But are they going to guarantee cover the rest of the costs, or are they going to pull from the project if it gets too expensive?
So I'd honestly have to let Drew answer and clarify some of that. With the discussion that was with the county, as far as what I know from being the airport, manager and being a part of that, some foundational information. The road is being realigned to the intersection because it's unsafe currently. The merge lane that's coming off of F from the airport onto Road G is very dangerous. There's a blind spot that's being generated. And so they need to realign that to make it safer. It needs to be brought up to modern standards with widening and visibility. So that's the basis of that question. As far as the records that I see, the road was last completely repaved in the early 90s. The idea is because of the soil under the road, they're going to avoid grinding it down to just dirt, using what's there and adding several layers as what's called an overlay, and then floating it to level it and widening it to increase the easement as well. So as far as them guaranteeing, the county guaranteeing, I'm not going to answer to that question. I think we should deflect that question to the county, get an honest answer out of that. The request for us to help pay for that makes sense. The airport uses the road. It's heavily used by airport traffic, but there are also commercial businesses that are also increasing, like Circle Z and Sealy oil as well. So we need to agree on a price, and I think that I won't answer whether the county is guaranteeing anything. But this is a step in the right direction, not only for beautification and urban blight discussions that we keep having, we keep going to those narratives, but safety and the economic development. And then for our airport development, we are designing right now with our engineers the parking lot. So this will transition into our parking lot design as well. So this discussion, thankfully, is happening. It needs to continue, and I'm not going to answer whether the county is guaranteeing anything.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Mayor and Council, just to clarify on this, this does not necessarily mean we're spending it. The ask was for $125,000, and the county verbally agreed to pick up the rest. So, I believe that was their words. We're still waiting on a packet from them on what all the details are. All we're doing on this one is just authorizing it, so it essentially shows up in the budget. But we will be coming back to county once we get all the details of the project and telling you what the final ask is, what that final amount is. So by doing this, you're not spending the money right now. We don't have all the details. This is high level, big picture, just throwing it in the budget so we're prepared if and when that comes.
Okay.
And we fully expect it to come, but you know, there's a whole other process to go through.
Okay, kind of showing that we're serious about the partnership of this.
That exactly, we're poised and ready to partner when we get the information.
And Madam Mayor, you know, it's important to note that it is a county road, but you know, it's part of it is within city property. So we do need to come to a consensus on that. And then as far as where the funding comes from, use of ARPA funds, and that's, I'm not speaking on that, you know, for anyone else, but that will be requested on my end for the sake that I'm an enterprise, and matching grants to get the parking lot done is a project that the federal entitlement group that I'm under may help with, even though there's potential for us to do a revenue generating, you know, fee to the parking lot. But as a foundation, using our ARPA funds tells the feds and the state that the airport is willing to throw, the community is willing to help the airport grow, and the airport is going to benefit, and this thing you know, turns back into the community as far as our economic development. As you guys keep mentioning, you know, with people coming in and out of that airport, what are they seeing right now? You know, we're causing crashes. We've got roads deteriorating. There's what they're seeing at the intersection. So the request for ARPA funds will come later, and I will generate a memo for that for the parking lot as well. So we can, ideally, we pay for the design and engineering of it, and then we go for a request to the feds and the state to match grants, and they will help us fund that. They'll be more willing to help us fund that.
Okay.
If that makes sense. You have any questions on that, council?
No, but I'd love to see this happen before October, when we
Well,
have our
if
new flight.
October's important, for obvious reasons on what you're leaning to or alluding to. October's also the time that we as the airport, because we're federally funded, we have grant assurances to adhere to, we're gonna have our master plan draft completed and going through FAA approval, but it also brings up our capital improvement plan. Kelly mentioned it earlier that we're working on that. Every October we update it, and every March the state and feds agree on what projects we are asking for help with. And beyond March, they don't let us change anything. So we've got to be strategic and looking at this from an advantageous, you know, do we throw community money at it, and can we get more out of the feds and the state? We still have to do our part. We can't just rely on federal grants and freebies, right? So we've got to throw a little more into the pot, I guess. Any questions?
Thank you, Jeremy.
You're welcome.
Okay, do we need a motion or anything?
Nope, it's
Okay.
just, nope, that's it.
Okay, so just clarifying for Kelly that we're, you know, including A through C and then E, which is the road, in the ordinance, and then we'll figure out having a separate one for the AV equipment and discussing that further at the next meeting.
Yes, ma'am. I
Okay.
will bring forward that ordinance at the next council meeting. Thank you for your time and your discussion this evening.
Thank you, Kelly. Okay, so we'll move on to public hearing section of the agenda, number 5. 5A is ordinance number 1304, series 2022, presented by our city attorney, Pat Coleman.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Good evening, City Council. I am bringing forward an item that was previously presented to you at your last meeting on first reading. And just to summarize, it is a ordinance that will extend the hours that marijuana vendors can operate from 9 o'clock p.m. until 11 p.m. And you have received comments during the work session and the first reading. You have a memorandum from my predecessor, Mr. Green, that I think does a good job of explaining the item. And if you agree with what is being proposed, that you should make a motion to approve ordinance number 1304, Series 2022.
All right, do we have any council questions or discussion? Okay, I'll open this up for public comment. If we have any public that would like to comment on this specific ordinance. All right, seeing none, we'll close the public comment section. All right, do we have a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 1304, Series 2022, after second reading and after public hearing on July 12th, 2022, for the extended hours of the marijuana stores.
Second.
Kiefhoffer.
Thank you.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
DeHaven.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Spruill.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right, we'll move on to 5B, ordinance number 1306, Series 2022.
Good evening once again. Patrick Coleman, City Attorney. Again, this is an item that was brought to you at your last meeting on first reading. It is on second reading now. You currently have a budget line item that allocates funds from the court fees to the DARE project at the police department. The police department has discontinued that program, and pursuant to the statute, you are required to allocate those funds to the general fund now. So it's more or less a house cleaning item, but if you agree to do that, then I would recommend that you entertain a motion to approve ordinance number 1306, Series 2022.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve on,
Do we do any
sorry, we
public?
do it
Sorry.
during public comment,
Okay, with no discussion, I'll open this up for public comment. Do we have any public that would like to speak on this? Okay, I'll close the public comment.
all right, now I'd like to make a motion to approve on second and final reading ordinance number 1206, Series 2022, amending City Code Section 17-14A2, allocation of a portion of court costs collected to the Cortez Police Department.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Dobry and seconded by DeHaven.
Dobry.
Aye.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Spruill.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
DeHaven.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right, we're on to 5C, ordinance number 1307, Series 2022.
Again, Patrick Coleman, City Attorney. This item was also brought to you on first reading at your last meeting. You have a memorandum in your packet from me explaining that subsequent to the hearing of July or June, was it 29th?
It was, yeah, it was last month.
Last month, anyway. On first reading, the potential tenant came forward and had a rather substantive change to the lease request. And I began reviewing the lease as well for the first time after first reading, because I wasn't working here at first reading. And I've had a couple of substantive changes and a number of house cleaning changes on the lease form that, in consultation with Mr. Patton at the airport, we think these changes should be made on all leases going forward. We've discussed the matter with the tenant, and the tenant is not under any time constraints and is willing to consider the revised lease when we get all the changes to them. And with that, what I would recommend is that you not approve this on second reading, and that it be reintroduced on first reading after the tenant and the airport are able to come to an agreement at the staff level on the terms of the lease.
Do we still need to open it to public comment? Since it's
Yes, I
ordinance?
think since it was posted as a public hearing, you should probably allow for public input.
Okay, I'll open up the public comment section for ordinance number 1307. The public would like to speak. All right, seeing none, I'll close the public comment section. So then, do we have a motion? So do we, a motion to?
A motion to deny the ordinance as presented on second reading.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to not approve on second reading ordinance number 1307, series 2022.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Dobry and seconded by Kiefhoffer.
Spruill,
Aye.
Yazzie,
Aye.
Rainey,
Aye.
Dobry,
Aye.
Kiefhoffer,
Aye.
DeHaven,
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right, we're on to 5D, resolution number 22, series 2022. Presented by Matt Kashner, our Human Resources Director.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So I'm here tonight to talk about the family leave program again. I'm not going to go into a bunch of details about that unless somebody has questions. We've already talked about it. I did want to let you know that part of the process to opt out of the family leave program is to notify employees, and I have done that. The notice was completed and sent out email and posted in the buildings. Part of that was that employees were invited to come here tonight and speak about this. I haven't talked to any employees that said they were going to be here. I did talk to 3 different employees that expressed interest and hoped that the city would opt out of this program. Other than that, I didn't have any other feedback. And also, it's kind of confusing how it is on the agenda, so there doesn't need to be, this is an ordinance, so there doesn't need to be a second reading on this. You guys can approve this tonight or disapprove it, whatever you decide. So staff would recommend that a motion be made to approve Resolution 22, Series 2022, to decline full participation in the Colorado Paid Family Medical Leave Insurance Program. I'll take any questions if you have any.
So the 3 people that advocated for opting out, did they give a general reason for that, or?
One person didn't want more money coming out of their paycheck, and another person, actually the other 2, said, we have great leave programs currently and we don't need this.
Madam Mayor, I'll make a motion approving resolution number 22, series 2022, request to deny full participation in the Colorado Paid Family Leave Insurance Program and not set for public hearing.
I'm sorry, was there any, I wanted to ask if there's any employees that came to speak about it. I don't think so, but no.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Arlena, what was your question?
I was just going to ask, we don't need to set a second hearing, a public hearing for July 26th. Is that correct? It's a, because since it's a resolution. Yeah.
Okay. All right, we have a
Was
motion.
was that clear enough for
Yes.
you guys?
I couldn't hear you.
Was that clear enough for you guys?
Yes.
I'll second it.
All right, motion made by Mayor Pro Tem Yazzie and seconded by Kiefhoffer.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
DeHaven.
Aye.
Spruill.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right, we're on to 6 on the agenda, unfinished business. 6A is the opioid settlement funds distribution, presented by Drew Sanders.
Yeah, good evening, Mayor and Council. Again, this is the latest iteration of the opioid settlement. If you recall, last fall, we came to council a couple of times to opt in to participate in the settlement, to opt in to participate in the Southwest Opioid Response District, or SWORD. And at that time, we advised council, or at least the information we had, was that we were going to get up to $103,000 over 18 years. And now the settlement has come in. The actual amount that the city is entitled to now is $57,175.96 over 18 years, with the first year allocation of $6,429.81. This is not enough money for us to really move the needle with anything in the city to address the opioid crisis. However, were we to opt out of receiving this, it would revert over to our region and be pooled with other municipalities and counties, and hopefully be far more effective. So I am recommending to council that we opt out of receiving this money directly, and that we have it revert over to our region in hopes that we can make a difference with the opioid crisis in our area.
City Manager, can you tell us what the total pool would be with all the entities participating?
With all the other, we don't have that data.
Okay.
I just had a question about our representation. In the bylaws, one representative would be appointed from a rotating city or town within each county, and then that rotating municipality shall be selected by the municipalities in the county that did not currently have a voting member sitting on the council. Do we have a representative, or I mean, whether it's a Cortez, or have we selected someone else through one of the other municipalities?
Yeah, for the first year, it was actually Shaq Powers from the Montezuma County. He was actually supposed to chair that group, and I know that now he's switched up with Region 9, that's obviously got to change. I don't think the decision has been made on who will now represent us. It's all too fresh, so.
Okay. Well, it looks like the county gets a representative, which I think he would have been filling that seat. I don't know if the new county administrator would fill that seat, but I guess just, can you keep us in the loop once we know who our representative and how we'll be able to voice our opinion into that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
We have an interest there, so.
All right, do we have a motion on this?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to direct the city manager to act on behalf of the city of Cortez to opt out of receiving our local share of opioid settlement funds, and thereby redirecting them to the Southwest Opioid Response District.
Second.
Motion made by Councilmember Kiefhoffer and seconded by DeHaven.
DeHaven.
Aye.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Spruill.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right, we're on to 6B, the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Advisory Board appointment, presented by Creighton Wright, our Parks Director.
Good evening, Madam Mayor, members of the council. Our Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Advisory Board provides advice to the Parks and Rec Director on Parks and Rec related matters. We have 6 members, 6 resident members of the advisory board and 1 ex officio city council member. We currently have 1 vacancy on that board. City clerk put out applications or requested applications earlier this spring for to fill that one vacant spot. We received 2 applications. Council interviewed the one member that we had. We did have a second member that withdrew, as you might recall, at our last meeting, right as the meeting was starting. So Ms. Paul is here in the audience and is willing and eager to join the Parks Recreation Advisory Board. Staff recommends appointing her to the one vacant spot.
Thank you. Do we have any last minute questions for Creighton or Ms. Paul?
I'd like to make a motion to appoint Ms. Terry Paul to the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Advisory Board.
Second.
All right, motion made by Councilmember DeHaven and seconded by Kiefhoffer.
Rainey.
Aye.
DeHaven.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Spruill.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. And I'd just like to thank Ms. Terry Paul for your patience through this, and thank you for your dedication to the community, and we appreciate you dedicating the next 3 years to this board. So, all right, so we'll move on to 7A on the agenda, or we're on to 7, new business. A is results from the request for proposal to provide professional civil engineering services to the City of Cortez, presented by Brian Peckins, our Director of Public Works.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and City Council. The Public Works Department is seeking a qualified engineering firm to provide on-call professional civil engineering design, construction management, project inspections, and field survey services related to a variety of civil engineering and city capital improvement projects. The selected firm will also provide core engineering review processes for the Community and Economic Development and the Parks and Recreation Department. Public Works recently sent out a request for proposal to experienced engineering firms for services related to planning, design, review, and inspections for a variety of civil engineering projects. We had 3 firms respond: Plummer Associates, SGM, and Ye and Associates, all out of Durango. While all 3 firms have qualified engineers on staff and are experienced in various projects, the city staff feels that SGM would best meet the majority of the city's needs. SGM was selected based on their civil engineering qualifications and broad experience and capabilities. Also, we have utilized their services in the past with satisfactory results. The staff reviewed the submitted proposals and is recommending SGM. If the council agrees, they can make the motion to enter into a professional services agreement with SGM to provide civil engineering, design, and survey services to the city. Any questions?
Do we know how much the services cost in total last year?
Last year? I do not.
Or this year, even?
I don't have that information available.
Okay.
But, they all provided fee schedules, but it's kind of like apples to oranges. You know, they've got 15 to 20 people that they can provide on any particular project, and it varies depending on what we ask them to do.
And then I saw the job announcement go out for a city engineer. And so if we were able to find someone and hire them, how would that, would they just, SGM just stay on retainer, or?
Yeah, there's
Okay.
no minimum requirement. So if we need them, we use them. If we don't need them, then we just have them, you know, in our hip pocket if need be.
Okay, great. I guess, I don't know if it's relevant, but like, what are we doing to recruit that? Because I imagine these services are great, but they can add up if we don't have our own, you know, employee.
Yeah, and as I think you know, we've got George Tripp is working on a part-time basis as a city engineer, but we don't know how long he's going to be here, so we're going ahead and recruiting for a permanent position. You know, we're just having a hard time, you know, filling engineer positions, and we're looking at maybe converting one of our assistant engineer position to another position. We can talk about that offline, but.
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Do we have a motion on this then?
Madam Mayor, I make a motion to approve a professional services agreement with SGM Inc. to provide civil engineering design survey services to the city of Cortez.
Second.
All right, motion made by Pro Tem Yazzie and seconded by DeHaven.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Spruill.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
DeHaven.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right, we're on to 7B, which was amended to our agenda. It's approval of a historic property survey contractor, presented by our grants administrator. Scott?
Yes.
Great.
Good evening, Council, Madam Mayor. I'm Scott Baker. I'm your grants administrator since late March this year. I'm bringing to you tonight a contract with Arch Professionals that was approved by the Historic Preservation Committee as the preferred vendor for this duty. This relates to a historic preservation grant from the state that was awarded in late March. We performed our due diligence, put out an RFP, gave it a month. We had one respondent. The one respondent, fortunately, was someone who has a strong prior work record with the Historic Preservation Committee. As you probably know, the goal here is to build the inventory of historic properties in the city. So this particular grant is for auto tourism related to the 1950s. And again, this contractor is strongly recommended by the Historic Preservation Committee. And Finance, we did our due diligence with checking on the vendor. It seems to check out fine. So hoping for your earliest approval on this, I have to get it back to the state for them to write the contract with this vendor by July 23rd. Any questions?
I'm married to an employee of Woods Canyon Archaeological Consultants. Should I remove myself? They're a subcontractor in this.
And thank you, council member, for disclosing.
And then I have my house listed on the historic registry.
Yeah, well, I don't think that's a conflict, Mayor, but
Okay.
thanks for declaring that as well.
Okay.
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that the proposal from Arch Professionals be approved and that the city enter into a contract with Arch Professionals for the completion of a property survey of 17 auto tourism properties from the 1950s within the city.
Second.
All right, motion made by Councilmember Dobry and seconded by Rainey.
Spruill.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Yazzie. Kiefhoffer. Rainey.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. All right, can someone get Lydia? All right, on agenda 8, draft resolution ordinances, we have none. 9, have a city attorney report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. Patrick Coleman, City Attorney. This is my first meeting, so I'm kind of excited to be here. And I did want to thank all of the staff that I've worked with and especially the senior management for really welcoming me. It's been made the first couple weeks, if not enjoyable, at least pleasant. And I also wanted to thank my predecessor, Mike Green. He spent some time with me and pointed me in the right direction on a number of matters, and that was helpful. And I just wanted to thank all of you for welcoming me, and I look forward to working with all of you. On a more substantive matter, and I thought I'd just throw this out here, and I've surveyed a few city attorneys and asked them the question of whether or not they present ordinances at their council meetings. And the question being whether the city attorney presents them or whether the department head who is involved with the issue presents them. And of course, some issues like major code amendments, the attorney is the primary person involved anyway. But certainly there are two schools of thought. One is that you get a more consistent presentation if you have the same person presenting every ordinance, and that's certainly what you've been used to. The, I guess, other school of thought is that generally the department head or other staff member who is most involved in the issue has probably gone to more meetings, has a much more comprehensive understanding of the topic. Your charter requires that the city attorney review, or I mean draft, it actually uses the term draw the ordinances. And I'm finding that's a rather standard term. I guess a lot of home rule communities have used the same form when they drafted their charters, but in any event, it doesn't mention who presents the ordinance. It just says that the city attorney shall draft it and prepare it, essentially. And I'm certainly not looking to change that, but I did want to kind of let you chew on it for a while and decide whether you would prefer to have, as the primary presenter, the staff person that would be most involved with the issue, and perhaps the city attorney maybe as kind of the secondary presenter who can add issues or answer questions of a legal nature, or if you'd prefer to have the consistency of the same person presenting each time. But I kind of wanted to throw it out to you. I've mentioned it to some of the department heads, and some of the staff may be glaring at me right now saying, no, we don't want to do that, but I did talk it over with the city manager, and he may have other thoughts on it, but I thought I'd kind of throw it out as one possible change in the process that I think certainly has some potential benefits to the way the meetings function. And that's all I had for my report.
So Patrick, really quick, the idea behind that, though, would be that that department head or whomever would also be in attendance for specific questions?
Yes, if they have an issue that's going to have an ordinance considered, that they would need to attend and be prepared to present and summarize the item, because I think certainly in drafting the ordinance, the attorney gets some understanding of what the issue is, but there's a lot of, I think, behind the scenes knowledge and understanding and discussion that doesn't necessarily get conveyed in the process of drafting the ordinance, that and much as we like to think we're all experts in everything, attorneys don't know everything, and the specialists and the experts at the staff level probably have a more comprehensive understanding of the issue, and rather than getting information secondhand from the attorney, maybe get it from the horse's mouth, as it were.
I personally like hearing from the department heads, but I don't know. Okay.
I do as well. Because I feel like even we always have to ask questions and people have to come up regardless.
And I think there was concern in the past of statements that weren't necessarily legal advice. So I think it's nice to hear from the attorney, but only, when it's legal. Okay, well, welcome, Patrick. We're so happy to have you on board, and we're really excited for the future, and we're definitely going to keep you busy. So.
Thank you.
All right, so then we'll move on to 10, City Manager's Report.
Yeah, good evening, Council. Some of the current issues occurring in the city of Cortez, the Veterans Memorial Park. You may have noticed that the sidewalk of the memorial has now been poured, and they're working on the final touches of the project. This project will allow better access for families of veterans who are disabled or mobility challenged. City staff is working to provide a bench, and I believe the Parks and Rec one. We're trying to make it just a little bit more enjoyable for those who want to come and enjoy that memorial. Additional improvements are being discussed, and we'll look at those in the future. I wish to remind residents and business owners of the City of Cortez Community and Economic Development Department is hosting an outreach session tomorrow afternoon at 2:30 p.m. in this room. The topic of discussion is the possibility of allowing food trucks to operate in the Central Business District. The Economic Development staff have worked very hard to arrange the interactive opportunity, and we've reached out to the Central Business District businesses and other interested parties to invite them to participate. We are looking forward to identifying the best course of action for the city on this topic. Third, we received word this morning that our audit firm, from our audit firm, that the 2019 audit is now complete. And they're starting to work on producing the audit opinions for 2017, 18, and 19. If you'll recall, on those previous years, they did not want to give an opinion until 2019 is done. 2019 represents the end of the high-risk audit group, or the end of the high-risk audits. We're pretty much out of the woods now. This is really an exciting time for all of us, and the nightmare of the embezzlement that occurred is nearly over, and our financial records are better off for it. I can't express how thankful I am to our dedicated finance team, Lynette Reese, Sarah Coffey, they're all being led by Finance Director Kelly Koski, and for all they have done to make this moment possible. I also wish to thank Atlas Auditing Firm for sticking with us during this very difficult process. If we can give a round of applause, please, Mayor, to our finance team. This has been hard fought, hard won. Also, Mayor, I'd like to do an employee highlight, if you'll indulge me. I'd like to recognize this evening Efren Vaquera from the airport, and I think the airport manager's already left, but Jeremy is the one who nominated him. He writes that Efren Vaquera continuously demonstrates a driven and committed work ethic throughout the airport. He is increasingly taking on the more responsibility and workload while the airport grows. He has been tasked with several projects and aiding the airport to obtain higher standards and certifications, and understands the importance of pride and ownership, and even during the tedious and mundane tasks. Efren takes an awful lot off of Jeremy so he can do what he's been doing to further the interests of the airport. We are frequently complimented on the condition of the airfield by various operators, and the majority of which is attributed to Efren's mowing and upkeep. With a large growing family, caring for his father, and working a second job, Efren demonstrates great virtue, faith, and patience in his life. Efren is known amongst the leadership team for making the best breakfast burritos in the Four Corners region, and we are lucky to have someone like Efren and his caliber to help and maintain our airport. So we're just really grateful to have Efren. Thank you. That's all I have, Mayor.
Well, and I'd like to second that. I flew out of the airport before the first and saw him working hard on the renovations in the airport, and it's really looking nice. So thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass that on, Mayor.
All right, we'll move on to City Council committee reports, which is number 11 on the agenda. I'll start with A, the mayor's report on the workshop. All right, during our work session, which was a special meeting, first we had a presentation from Teresa Wilson, the interim manager for the bridge shelter, letting us know that the day labor is back, and that's set up a little more efficiently this year. They've had 15 tenants upstairs. Over the year, they had 198 people come through, and they served over 6,200 meals. Then we interviewed for an open seat. We interviewed Christina Weiss. did I say that? Katrina Weiss, I'm sorry. Katrina Weiss for the open seat on the Planning and Zoning Commission. And then we went into executive session regarding the possible sale of the city's broadband infrastructure. All right, we'll move on to 11B. Do we have other board reports from any city council members?
We have a huge public following at the Parks, Recreation, and Forestry Board meetings, and I just wanted to let all those people who probably are going to show up know that we are going to move the meeting to the 22nd of July. So you should mark that on your calendars and make that change.
Thanks for that update.
I have a golf committee meeting that I went to. Yay! The golf committee meeting, the big highlight is dogs on the golf course. Should we let them or should we not let them? We had one person say, is this a dog pound or is this a golf course? And I guess it was very few comments on it, but that's a big discussion. Do we allow dogs on the golf course or not? So they're going to kind of dissuade people from bringing their dogs to the golf course because some dog owners are great and some dog owners not so much. The golf has made, compared to last year, $127,000 more dollars. So they're doing fantastic, and everything seems to be going good at the golf course.
Great. Any other committee reports? All right. Okay, so we'll move on to other items of business. Item 12A is an executive session. And before we make a motion to go in executive session, I just want to remind the public that we do have another public participation section of the meeting after our executive session. And so if you want to speak, I appreciate you waiting till after we get out because it's a long night. So, okay. Do we have a motion to go in executive session?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to enter executive session for the discussion of a personnel matter under CRS Section 24-6-402 4FI and not involving any specific employees who have requested discussion of the matter in an open session, any member of this body or any elected official, the appointment of any person to fill an office to this body or of any elected official, or personnel policies that do not require discussion of matters personal to a particular employee. The discussion will be held on the city manager's annual review.
Second.
All right, motion made by Councilmember Dobry and seconded by DeHaven.
Dobry.
Aye.
Yazzie.
Aye.
DeHaven.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Spruill.
Aye.
Kiefhoffer.
Aye.
Medina.
Aye. Okay.
I feel like I'm in college.
Right?
Would you like a City of Cortez $2,800 mint?
Yes, please. Whoa, I'm taking two. Thank you. Good catch. See, this is why we need 7 eyes on things. Oh, they're weird. All right, the time is now 11 p.m. and the executive session has been concluded. The participants in the executive session were City Manager Drew Sanders, City Attorney Pat Coleman, Councilmember Robert Dobry, Councilmember Arlena Yazzie, Councilmember Matt Kiefhofer, myself, Rachel Medina, Councilmember Dennis Spruill, Councilmember Lydia DeHaven, and Councilmember David Rainey. For the record, if any person who participated in the executive session believes that any substantial discussion of any matters not included in the motion to go into executive session occurred during the executive session, or that any improper action occurred during the executive session in violation of the open meeting law, I ask you to state your concerns for the record. No adoption of any policy, position, resolution, rule, regulation, or other formal action occurred during the executive session. So the next agenda item is public participation. All right, seeing no public.
Mayor Medina.
What?
I needed to let the city council know that we received 4 emails on our city council email that we set up during this city citizen participation.
Oh, okay.
That we have set up. We have 4 emails and we'll present them to council before the next meetings due to the time tonight. So we'll make sure that these are given to you and we can read the names in the record.
Okay.
The next meeting. So I just wanted to let you know we do have 4.
Okay, great. Thank you, Linda. Appreciate that. All right, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn. Second.
Motion made by Pro Tem Yazzie and seconded by DeHaven.
Yazzie.
Aye.
Dobry.
Aye.
Rainey.
Aye.
Spruill. Aye. DeHaven.
Aye.
Kiefhofer.
Aye.
Medina.